Earth was destroyed in the past because of an advanced galactic war. Is this fact or fiction? Well, we have a lot of ancient texts that are not wanting as far as fantasy is concerned. Why was the Earth destroyed centuries ago, and what did scientists discover? It is possible that a very high civilization, quote unquote, competed for supremacy not only within our galaxy but also within our solar system, and the planet Earth actively participated in this competition. This is according to various Greek legends as well. There is convincing evidence, though, that the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt was part of an ancient military campaign to develop a superboat, a supercraft. The intergalactic battle of ancient Rome, hundreds of years before audiences fell in love with Star Wars, one writer dreamt of battles in space. A long time ago, a world not so far away, a young man who longed for adventure was swept up in a galactic war. Forced to choose between two sides in the deadly battle, he befriended a group of scrappy fighters who captained three-headed vultures, giant fleas, space spiders, and you name it. Women with snake hair. Nearly 2,000 years before George Lucas created his epic star opera Star Wars, his space opera, Lucian of Samosata, province in modern-day Turkey, wrote the world's first novel featuring space travel and interplanetary battles. True History was published around 175 AD during the height of the Roman Empire, and Lucian's space adventure featured a group of travelers who left Earth with their spacecraft, and then they're thrown into the sky by a ferocious whirlwind. After 7 days of sailing through the air, they arrive onto the moon, only to learn that its inhabitants are at war with the people of the sun. So you can imagine the ancient Star War plot here. Both parties fighting for control of a colony on the morning star, the planet we call Venus. The warriors for the sun and moon armies travel through space on winged acorns and giant gnats, and horses as big as ships, armed with outlandish weapons like slingshots that used enormous turnips as ammunition. And there are those that have their demise in this battle, and which made them look, their blood on the clouds made them look like red color, as sometimes they appear to us at the setting sun, according to what Lucian wrote. Now, after the war's conclusion, Lucian and his friends continued traveling through space, learning about the moon's odd inhabitants, an all-male society whose anatomy included a single toe instead of a whole foot, and children, before moving on to visit the morning star, Venus, and other space cities. Lucian was more of a satirist than a novelist. His work titled True History was written as a critique of philosophers and historians and their ways of thinking about new discoveries. And as scholar Roy Arthur Swanson wrote, Lucian's work provided the perennially necessary reminder that thinking and believing are different and distinct kinds of mental activity, and that it's best not to confuse the two. But being a work of satire does not preclude true history from joining the ranks of science fiction. In addition to showing first contact and wars in space and a flight to the moon, the work's satirical nature is actually yet another thing it has in common with the genre's modern form. Quote, one of the consistent themes of sci-fi is satire and making fun of the way humans live and run the world, says Aaron Parrott, professor of English at University of Great Falls, Montana. He said this is one reason why Lucian is so important. He did that very thing. And Lucian was also likely aware of major scientific and philosophical research of his time, including Plutarch's, quote, on the face in the orb of the moon, end quote, and Ptolemy's last recorded observation of the planets, which occurred 14 years prior to Lucian's publication. Still, the astronomical telescope was not invented until 1610. Well, that's not so. I did a recent article on ancient Greeks having telescopes. So Lucian's narrative doesn't feature scientifically sound space travel. Does that mean it does not count as an early form of genre? It depends on who you ask. Douglas Dunlop, who works as a metadata librarian at Smithsonian Libraries, sees parallels between Lucian's writing and that of the latter science fiction writer like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. Quote, just because it doesn't have what we would call modern science doesn't take away from the fact that philosophy and natural sciences influenced the writing, Dunlop says. There was a theory called plurality of worlds that goes back to Greek antiquity, which was the concept of life existing in space. So who's to say that what they were doing in their philosophy and observation was not informing their understanding of the world around them, end quote. Other literary scholars posited the world of science fiction starts with the Epic of Gilgamesh, 2100 BC. Then we have Frankenstein, 1818, or the works of Jules Verne, 1850s. And for famous American astronomer Carl Sagan, sci-fi starts with Johannes Kepler's novel Somnium, written in 1634, which describes a trip to the moon and the view of Earth seen from far away. But Kepler, as it turns out, was partially inspired by Lucian. He picked up true history in the original Greek to master the language. While Latin was the vernacular of ancient Rome, Greek was the language used by the educated elite. He wrote that his studies were improved by his enjoyment of the adventure, and it seems to have sent his imagination spinning as well. This is Kepler. Okay? Now, these were my first traces of a trip to the moon, which was my aspiration to later times, Kepler wrote. Genre requirements aside, both true history and Star Wars offer ways of understanding and exploring human world, even though the stories take place in the stars. And one of the great things that science fiction does as a way of changing people's worldview is show what the world might be like, Parrott says. It's remarkable that people dreamed up things long before there was any possibility that they could do it. This is true not just of flying to the moon, but of flying in general. Lucian would never have believed humans would actually fly to the moon or fly, but he imagined it, and the path he laid for intergalactic stories continues to send writers and scientists and moviegoers dreaming of what might be out there just beyond our reach. This was from Smithsonian, also a Greek article I translated for you. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.